I'm using Reaper and I want to compare a few free virtual synthesizers. A synthesizer has an oscillator, a filter, and an amplifier, and a low frequency oscillator that can be used to alter some of the other parameters, and envelope adjustments which will change the character of the amplifier stage. ReaSynth only has a couple of these sections. First of all, we can control the wave shape. This is the oscillator. By default it has a sine wave. We can add in square wave, sawtooth wave, triangle wave, and at the top we have the envelope controls. So we have the attack, which is how quickly the sound reaches its full amplitude. That's in milliseconds. The decay is how quickly the sound diminishes from the peak of the attack, as long as we keep the key depressed. The sustain is how loud the sound is as it continues on after the decay. And the release is how quickly the sound fades off when we take our hand off the keyboard. So we can get very percussive sounds by having a short attack, short decay, no sustain, and quick release. We can swell a sound in by increasing the attack, increasing the decay, and perhaps would have quite a high sustain level, and then slow release. Second synth is also a very simple one. It's called Basic 64 and it's modelled after the sounds from a Commodore 64 computer. On the left here we have 3 parallel oscillators working. We have different types of wave that we can select. At the moment we've got a sine wave selected for oscillator 1. We can change that to a sawtooth, to a square, or just noise. We can tune it. Each of the oscillators has their own envelope shaper here with attack, decay, sustain and release. Here we have a filter placed at the end of the chain with the type of filter we want on the right here, low pass, high pass or band pass, and resonance. And we've got a low frequency oscillator here which we can modulate our initial pitch with. Here's another simple synthesizer called Inorganic 1. We have 2 oscillators here and we can select the waveform of the 2 oscillators from sine, sawtooth, triangle, square or noise. We've got a little oscilloscope up here that we can visualize the wave. That can be switched between the output or the different oscillators. We can select the type of filter we want here. Once again we've got resonance and cutoff. We can see up here on the oscilloscope the waveform. And we have the envelope up here with our attack, decay, sustain and release. Percussive noise. Here we can also tune the octave of our main oscillator. We also have a couple of effects here. We've got a delay and a reverb that we can turn on and off and have parameter controls. This is free alpha, oscillator 1, oscillator 2, filter and the voltage controlled amplifier. And we have a matrix here where we can send the output from the low frequency oscillator here to wherever we want to, and a chorus effect at the end. We've got a triangle wave. We've got more than our standard wave shapes. We can mix the A and the B wave shapes together. So that's the triangle wave and that's the sawtooth wave. We've got a filter here with resonance and we've got the cutoff slope. So sweep the filter down. Now the amplifier has got this, the attack, decay, sustain, release. Making the attack faster. We can get our percussive sounds. With the matrix we can send our low frequency oscillator to oscillator 1 pitch. This oscillator we can also synchronize the timing of the project. We can add that chorus in. Here's another one, Charlatan, and well laid out again. We've got 2 oscillators with wave selection and volume for each oscillator. Oscillator 2's got a greater variety of wave shapes. We've got the low frequency oscillator here, which we can set to control this oscillator. We've got a filter here. You can select the type of filter. We can control the filter either with this envelope shaper here or with the low frequency oscillator. And then we've got the amplifier envelope here. Lastly, here's zebralet. Now, instead of having just sine wave and sawtooth and square wave, there's a choice of many different waves for our oscillator to generate. We can even make our own wave shapes here by dragging these points around in this window. Same with the envelope control. We've got quite a few controls here to create our own envelope. So we can even have a note that starts slowly, swells in, sustains for a while, disappears and then comes back. We've got a modulation section down here, and we've got an envelope for the modulation section as well. So although these synthesizers all look completely different, they do all have voltage controlled oscillators to give us the basic waveform. Most of them had a filter, which we can take off some of the treble or some of the frequencies we don't want. They all have a voltage controlled amplifier section, and most of them have an envelope which to control the attack, decay, sustain and release of every note. And most of them had a low frequency oscillator that could modulate the oscillator or have an effect over the filters or envelope.